In terms of what the Productivity Commission here in Australia has said about ageing, it's going to bankrupt the country and we've all got to worry a lot about this and do something about it. I was at the gerontology conference in the US a month or two ago, along with 6,000 other delegates, and they actually said there's been some work done showing that the extent to which older people give back to the community evens out this increase in expenditure. So it's a net even outcome, which is good. But I think the biggest takeout for us here is that look at that huge jump in healthcare costs. We can do something about that if we can find ways to improve the health of older people, and we're particularly interested in using physical activity as a mechanism to do that. And why physical activity? Well, it really is a magic bullet. Unfortunately, it's one that most people aren't very interested in. It's hard to get people excited about it, but they should be. It is so good. There's increasing amount of research showing that it's actually better than or equal to medication in lots of different applications, from mental health right through to blood pressure. So we really should be getting our GPs to write prescriptions to their older people to do more physical activity. Okay, the specific benefits you've probably heard already in your different walks of life, but there are lots of them in terms of dementia prevention. We've been hearing about dementia, as well as those physical conditions that we tend to associate more with physical activity, like cardiovascular disease and diabetes, etc. So there's a huge, big evidence base saying now we should be prioritising this and making sure that older people are doing enough physical activity to reduce these risks. So as we get older, unfortunately, our BMI creeps up as well. Now, when you get to the old status, I'm really looking forward to that because you can eat everything then because you don't seem to keep weight on and more weight's actually a benefit. But for those who are sort of 60 to 70, 75, BMI tends to be too high. And unfortunately, the higher your BMI, the increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and a range of other things. So physical activity helps us to keep our BMI in check, but seniors do less physical activity than the rest of the community. So it's a vicious cycle, a downward cycle. They do less physical activity, they come in worse health, which means they do less physical activity in return. And the numbers of people not doing enough physical activity are mind-boggling. These are the non-compliant statistics. And the basic message is that every age group is crap at this. We all need to be doing more. So we need big population level messages about physical activity. But if you look at once you hit 60, you've got 3/4 of people who are not doing the bare minimum. There is so much potential to increase seniors' physical activity. It's a huge untapped area. And there are good outcomes. You know, we don't have to be old, overweight and unfit. We can actually work out and be fit and healthy all the way through our lives. So our particular study was looking at what seniors thought about physical activity and what they were actually doing. And the aim was to gather a whole bunch of information that we could use to inform future interventions on this. And this was part of a much larger random control trial that we were doing that was funded by the Australian Research Council. And we're just in the process of churning the rest of that data at the moment. But that was really fun. So we had 400 seniors and we randomised 200 of them as controls and 200 of them we bullied them into going out and doing volunteering. And we did a whole lot of pre-post physical and mental health measures, and we're in the process of seeing whether, if seniors do go and volunteer, do they actually get better outcomes. Our team, our research team, so we have Rob Newton from Edith Cowan, Ben Jackson from here at UWA, and Jenny Warburton, who's a volunteering specialist from La Trobe University in Victoria. And then we had the team of us who interviewed, like more than 800 interviews were conducted in total for the big study, along with doing all sorts of different physical health measures as well. The component of the study I'm going to talk to you about were individual interviews conducted with 242 of those people, of whom just over half were female, and we spoke to them at length about the kinds of physical activity they are doing or not doing, the intensities that they do it at, and any barriers or motivators that they experience. Okay, overwhelming findings. So obviously some of them were really into exercise, but for the vast majority, exercise is a chore. For this particular generation, they're used to getting their physical activity incrementally and as part of their daily lives. They're not used to programming it. They're not used to actively scheduling it into their lives. So to have to start doing that at this age, it goes against their practices, which is what we were hearing just before. When they do it, it's mainly all about weight control, that the doctors told them that they're carrying too many kilos and they need to do something about that. That's when they start to get a bit motivated. The other kinds of things, thank you, like dementia prevention and heart disease and cancer, etc., they're pretty much off the radar. They're just worried about the midriff. Other facets of life just seem so much more important for this group. You know, the babysitting responsibilities and grey nomading or whatever they're doing. They've got other things at this life that they really are interested in and want to do. Exercise doesn't seem to come into it. And then, of course, we've got physical health problems, their illnesses, pain they may have due to arthritis and other conditions that gets in the way, and plain old inconvenience too. So one of them saying here, oh, it's too wet or too cold, just don't go out, don't do it. And then others tried to, but then they experience some kind of negative physical effect and they stop very quickly. Walking dominates, and we heard that before as well. So they've really got the message that you should do a little bit of walking, but they do quite leisurely gait walking, and it tends to be not for very long, and it tends to be they seek out the flat surfaces. So they're really not, doing themselves as much of a service as they could. You know that whole 10,000 steps thing? They've heard that. They're kind of aware of that. They don't know the official guidelines that exist out there because we do a terrible job of promoting those. But even though they're kind of aware of this 10,000 steps thing, they don't know how many they're doing. And we put pedometers on them for 6 months, and believe me, they're not getting anywhere near that. So these guidelines just aren't working. They're also oblivious to the fact that there are other kinds of activity that are very, very important other than walking. So the resistance training that they really need for falls prevention and prevention of osteoporosis, unpleasant, don't really want to do that. As she says here, it's boring, it's just me against me. Why would I go to the gym to do that? The balance work they're unaware of, and flexibility largely as well. We asked all of them, has your GP ever spoken to you about the need to do physical activity? And the vast majority said no. The majority of them are on blood pressure medication. So even though they're coming in and they're getting prescription for blood pressure, the GP isn't asking them how much physical activity they do and isn't suggesting that they should do more than they're currently doing. Again, massive gap. They also tend to have a little bit of rose-coloured glasses on when it comes to what their own physical activity levels are. So, for instance, I think shopping, going to the shops, is a form of physical activity that kind of ticks off their requirement for the day. And doing household chores, walking around the house, is considered physical activity by quite a few. So they underestimate how much they should be doing. They're unaware of official guidelines. They consider exercise to be unpleasant. So what we have to do then is start to try and frame it as something pleasant that they might want to do, while trying to get them to do more than they're actually doing. So it's sounding like quite a hard task already. But a key thing might be this cognitive benefit, because they're largely unaware of that, but it's super important. Elsewhere in the interviews, they talked a lot about their fears about getting dementia. So if we can, really position physical activity as a preventive activity for that, then we've got perhaps a little bit of an anchor there. And as we said, we really need to get those GPs on board to prescribe activity. We also need to get, as we said, to the whole general community, as well as seniors in particular, the message out that actually physical activity isn't an optional add-on. Physical activity is like your dinner. It's something you should be just doing every single day. So we've had the 5:30 campaign out there, but that was specifically targeted at 20 to 54-year-olds, so this age group wasn't included. We've got the Live Lighter campaign currently, and that's just generally targeted at adults. But when you look at the kind of imagery in that campaign, it tends to not be that older group as well. So we're really missing concentrated public campaigns focusing this group. We do have the Living Longer, Living Stronger program that's run by Curtin, and they're doing a great job. But this program runs on the smell of an oily rag. Its future is in doubt until it can get more funding. And it's got no promotion budget, which means it just can't get out there and really sell the need for this kind of program to older people. So again, big deficits there that we need to fill. So implications, we need to make sure that our seniors are aware of the different kinds of physical activity out there. They need to be made aware of the importance of resistance training, flexibility and balance. And we also need to get them some social interaction, because they seem to be more motivated to do physical activity in groups. And we already mentioned the more walking thing. And that is a thing in Perth. I didn't realise we actually, CODA, have got more walking groups in different parts. So if you're dealing with older people, they can actually go and find these groups and join up. We need some quite targeted health communications at this group to promote healthy ageing to them in the context of what activities they're doing. We need to make sure that there are opportunities nearby for them, not just walking around the block. Where can they go to get these other kinds of activity? And again, we need to promote those guidelines. We're trying to do, at the moment, a whole bunch of research around what kind of messages would work best. You can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. we've found that they can be very resistant to being told what to do. Like they'll say, this is my time, I've done things for other people all my life, stop telling me what to do now. So we really need to develop up some great motivating messages that don't sound like we're preaching. So again, that's another big challenge. And males and females might expect different things, and younger seniors versus older seniors might need quite different messaging as well. So on very, very small budgets, we're going to have to come up with quite well-segmented messages. So things like move more, live longer, we've been testing with people, and I quite like it when it's snappy and when there's some alliteration and it's a good, clean message. What we don't know then is if it actually makes them go and do anything. And we also really need to focus on the fact, what is moderate to vigorous physical activity? You've got to huff and puff a bit to be ticking off your physical activity box, not coming back from your walk feeling pretty much the same as you felt when you left. Thank you very much.
Move more, live longer, I like it. Questions, comments? Yes.
I'm just wondering whether you've looked at some of the things that I'm thinking about, some of our community centres that get big groups of seniors, and they run programs like Beat the Feet and Prime Movers. They're like a dance program. Some of those ones that seem to attract, and there's definitely a social aspect to it, which is important. But and also more walkers is just fantastic for a whole range of different reasons.
Prime Movers did get mentioned a bit, but it was typically seen as the very old. So that 60 to 70-year-old bracket didn't want to self-identify by going to Prime Movers, so we've got that kind of image issue as well. But yeah, a lot of people didn't even know that kind of thing exists though. Yeah. So if we can get some kind of promotion of those facilities.
Other comments? Leon?
How confident are you that those guidelines are appropriate for people over the age of 70?
We're in the School of Psychology, so in terms of physiology, zero confidence.
So you have no confidence?
Haven't thought about confidence. Yeah, we just take those at face value as the NHMRC putting out evidence-based.
So what I'm getting at is that we've done studies of 70-plus-year-olds, and sure, people who exercise more get more benefits, but the biggest change is being from sedentary to doing 10 minutes a day of anything, not moderate to severe, moderate to vigorous, but doing very light walking for 10 minutes a day, which is about 20% of the population do. That's what they do. They do absolutely nothing. They're sedentary. Moving them from that to 10 minutes a day is half the effect of mortality. So when we say that you've got to get up to 150 minutes or nothing, the bigger message is actually you have to do something.
They have assimilated the message that they need to do something. They haven't decided that they're going to do something as a result of knowing that. But yes, so it's bridging that gap. Yeah, and I guess it's depending whether you're thinking about it more in terms of prevention. So can we get it younger and get the younger seniors to be doing more earlier, so they're not getting to that point where they're 75 and very sedentary. That would be the option. And I guess what you're talking more is about the treatment. What do we do once they're there?
70-year-olds who are sedentary have been like that for 20 years. They're not just got there.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So that's more of a treatment focus. How do you treat people who are sedentary as opposed to let's prevent them getting like that?
It's the idea that we often frighten those people who are doing absolutely nothing. We frighten them by saying they've got to do 150 minutes.
So you're saying it's an easier sell actually than you think. They just need to do 10 minutes of walking.
Everyone should be doing a bit more. That's the sell.
There are dangers in that though, because we've had some of them say to us, oh, we heard that 5:30 thing, and I was doing an hour, but then I realised I only need to do 30 minutes, so I cut right back. So you have to be so careful who you deliver what message to.
Yes, there's another question.
There's research which demonstrates that adding laughter yoga to exercise programs provides motivation and increased participation of all people.
I would believe that. Got to get them there in the first place, I suppose.
Any other questions or comments? We're all adding this to our diaries. Daily exercise.
And we're all sedentary sitting here listening to it.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, Simone.